You should have your complex sentence notes in front of you as you watch this video. As you watch the video, fill in your notes along with me. Feel free to pause or re-watch any part of this video as many times as you need to until you understand what we're talking about here, which is complex sentences. So at this point, you should know what a basic simple sentence is and what makes a simple sentence. You should also recognize that a simple sentence is the same thing as an independent clause, a group of words that has a subject and a verb and makes sense and can stand alone independently, an independent clause. Building on that information, we're going to learn something new that forms a complex sentence. So let's get to our notes. A complex sentence is made of or has one independent clause, and one or more dependent clauses. One independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. So the dependent clause part of this notes should be new for you at this point. A dependent clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb that cannot stand alone. That's important. That is what makes a dependent clause different than an independent clause. An independent clause can stand alone. It is a simple sentence. But a dependent clause has an extra word involved that makes it not able to stand alone. It doesn't make sense by itself. Let's look at our sentence family. So if we determine that sentences can be compared to families, the complex sentence is like an adult, is like an adult with a baby or children. So the adult part is the independent clause, and the baby or children are the dependent clauses. These need help making sense, just like a baby or a child needs help living. Let's look at some examples so you can get an idea of what this dependent clause is. I like Sally because she is funny. I is a subject here. Like is a verb. I like Sally is an independent clause, and we are going to underline the independent clause twice. Because she is funny, well, she is a subject and is a verb, but this half of our sentence doesn't make sense by itself. If we cover I like Sally, all that you have is because she is funny. That can't stand alone. It needs help making sense. I can't tell you if you do your homework, or when we go to school, or until you open your book, because I'm only giving you half of a thought. It needs more to make sense. That's what makes it dependent. Because she is funny does not stand alone. It's not enough to form a complete thought. I like Sally because she is funny. So this side, I like Sally, can stand alone. That's our independent clause. Because she is funny is our dependent clause. We're going to underline it once. Kathy will be late for dinner since the meeting is still in progress. Kathy will be late for dinner could stand alone. That makes sense by itself. But the second half of this sentence is our dependent clause, since the meeting is still in progress. That's dependent, so we underline it one time. Again, let's look at both sides of that. Kathy will be late for dinner. That's a sentence by itself. I could put a period there, and we would have a complete thought. Since the meeting is still in progress, I'm left thinking, what is happening since the meeting is still in progress? I don't know. That's not enough information to form a complete thought. But there is a subject and a verb in there, meeting and is, so it's a dependent clause. The game will end when one team scores. The game will end is our independent clause. When one team scores is our dependent clause. It can't stand by itself. Let's dig a little deeper and look at what these special words are that make a clause dependent. So, subordinating conjunctions are the special words. These are words that show the relationship of the dependent clause to the independent clause. One thing that you should note here is that the subordinating conjunction is always the first word of the dependent clause. It's the word that makes the clause dependent. Now, there's a long list of subordinating conjunctions, and the bottom line is you're just going to have to familiarize yourself with them so you become familiar with the kinds of words that are subordinating conjunctions. After, although, as if, as long as soon as though, because, before, even if, even though, if, and the list goes on. Look over them. We use these words all the time, but we don't realize what they do. So now you're learning that these subordinating conjunctions make a clause dependent and form complex sentences. Let's look at them in action. There are two different ways to sequence a complex sentence. The first way is to put your dependent clause first, and in this case, you must use a comma in your sentence. When I get to Phoenix, you will be sleeping. Here's that subordinating conjunction, when. Do you see it in the list above? Awesome. So this side of our sentence is our dependent clause. When I get to Phoenix. We're going to underline that once. Notice that comma there. The second half here, you will be sleeping, is our independent clause because this side, that subject and verb, would be able to stand alone. After the players practiced, they went out for pizza. There's that comma again. So do you see a word from the list above that's our subordinating conjunction? It is after. After the players practiced. That is the dependent clause. They went out for pizza. That is the independent clause. Underline it twice. Until the storm is over, we will not know about the damage. What is the subordinating conjunction in this sentence? Check the list above if you're not sure. It is until. So until the storm is over is our dependent clause. There's that comma that we need. And the second clause is the independent clause. We will not know about the damage. So out to the side, let's list our formulas. These are our sentence formulas that you will need for your practice pages. So when we use the dependent clause first, the formula is D, comma, I. Dependent, comma, independent. That is the sentence formula. Do not forget that comma. The second way you can sequence or write your complex sentences is using the independent clause first. In this case, you don't need a comma. You'll see that we took the same sentences from above and just switched the ideas around. Here is my subordinating conjunction when. So when I get to Phoenix is my dependent clause, but it's second now. It's at the end of the sentence. You will be sleeping is my independent clause, and we're double underlining the independent clause. You will be sleeping when I get to Phoenix. The players went out for pizza after they practiced. After is the subordinating conjunction, and remember the subordinating conjunction is always the first word of the dependent clause. So after they practiced is the dependent clause. The players went out for pizza is the independent clause. We will not know about the damage until the storm is over. The subordinating conjunction is until, which makes until the storm is over the dependent clause. And the beginning, we will not know about the damage, is the independent clause of this complex sentence. So these are complex sentences, an independent clause and a dependent clause. Depending on the order, you might need a comma or not. So the other formula is the I first, followed by the D, no comma needed. These formulas you will need on your practice sheet. So at this point, come show me your notes, and I'll give you your practice for today.